Have you ever felt like life just slips by too fast? One moment you're planning your next big project, the next you're sitting at a hospital bed wondering where all the time went. Here's the truth no one wants to talk about, but we all must face. Death doesn't send a warning letter. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for the right moment. It comes quietly, suddenly, and far too often, unexpectedly. But what if I told you that the human body in its quiet wisdom does try to warn us? Yes. Long before our final breath, our body begins to whisper. Not in riddles or mystical signs, but in biological truths. These are subtle, physical, and mental changes that science now understands with surprising clarity. Most people ignore them, not out of carelessness, but out of fear, discomfort, or simply not knowing what to look for. And yet knowing these signs could mean the difference between being caught off guard or being prepared, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. That's what this video is all about. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 5 of the most reliable and medically recognized signs that death may be approaching. These are not scary stories or superstition. These are patterns doctors see time and time again, but rarely talk about publicly. And let me be clear, this video isn't meant to frighten you. It's meant to empower you, to help you make important choices while there's still time, to help you say the words you've been meaning to say, and to bring peace to a moment that many fear the most. Maybe you're here because of a loved one. Maybe you're caring for an aging parent, a friend battling illness, or maybe you've started noticing changes in yourself. Whatever brought you here, I invite you to stay, because each of these signs we'll cover is a piece of a bigger picture, a story your body is trying to tell before it falls silent. And I promise you, once you learn to read these signs, you'll not only face the idea of death with more clarity, you'll also learn how to live with greater meaning, presence, and intention. So if you're short on time, speed up the video, but don't skip it. Because even missing one detail might cause you to overlook something critical, something that could give you or your loved ones a chance to prepare and even find peace. Let's take a deep breath together. And now let's begin with the very first sign, one that often shows up quietly in the most ordinary of places, your bedroom. Sign number 1, profound changes in sleep patterns. Have you ever noticed someone close to you suddenly start sleeping? All the time. I'm not talking about staying in bed on a lazy Sunday or crashing after a long week at work. I mean a real profound change, like they're suddenly sleeping 14 to 16 hours a day. Or on the flip side, they're absolutely exhausted but can't sleep at all. Restless, pacing, awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, completely drained but unable to rest. If you've seen this happen, especially over a period of weeks, this might be more than just stress or burnout. This could be the first sign that the body is preparing for its final transition. Let's break this down. As we age, we typically need less and less sleep. That's pretty normal. But when death is approaching, that pattern often reverses. Suddenly, the body starts demanding more rest than ever before. Why? Because it's conserving energy. Think of your body like a phone on 5% battery. Every process, digestion, movement, even thinking, uses up power. So when time is running short, the body starts shutting down non-essential systems. It says, let's keep only the heart and lungs going. Forget the rest. And here's what's truly fascinating. Some people don't get more sleepy, they get restless. Even though they're beyond tired, they fight sleep like something inside them is saying, there's not much time left. Stay awake. Feel every moment you can. Doctors actually have a name for this: terminal restlessness. It's not a disorder. It's not random. It's the body and mind responding to something deeper, something final. Another strange thing that happens, your internal clock breaks down. People who once had regular bedtimes start waking up in the middle of the night and dozing off during the day. The circadian rhythm, the biological cycle that's been with us since birth, begins to lose its grip. Now you might be thinking, okay, but that could be anything, right? Stress, anxiety, even a bad week? You're absolutely right to ask that. But here's how you can tell it's something more serious. It doesn't go away after a few days. It doesn't improve with routines, tea, or sleeping aids. And most importantly, it often comes with other physical or emotional changes we'll cover later in this video. From my own experience, I'll never forget when this happened with my uncle. A strong, vibrant man who loved waking up early, going on walks, and keeping busy. Then, one month, everything shifted. He started sleeping through the mornings, then the afternoons. Soon, he was only awake for a few hours a day. At first, we thought he was just tired. Maybe a flu, maybe boredom. But deep down, something didn't feel right. It wasn't until we saw the other signs that we realized this was his body gently telling us, it's time. And here's something else that's important. It's often the family, not the person themselves, who notices this change first. Because when you're in it, you don't always realize that you're sleeping more or that you're becoming restless. But to the people around you, the shift is unmistakable. These sleep changes usually begin 1 to 3 months before death. They're early whispers from the body. And if you listen closely, they don't have to be frightening. They can be invitations. Invitations to slow down, to talk more, to be present, to say things that matter while there's still time. So if you or someone you love is suddenly experiencing dramatic sleep changes, sleeping too much, or barely sleeping at all, and it's been going on for weeks, pay attention. This might be sign number 1 that something deeper is happening beneath the surface. And remember, one sign alone doesn't paint the full picture. That's why, in the next part of this video, we'll explore the second sign, a physical change that many families actually mistake for a good thing, when in reality, it's one of the most telling signs the body is preparing to let go. So stay with me, because understanding these signs isn't about fearing death. It's about learning how to embrace life, even in its final chapters. Sign number 2, sudden and unintentional weight loss, cachexia. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever seen someone close to you suddenly start losing weight without trying? At first, it might look like something to celebrate. Hey, you're looking slimmer. Wow, you lost a few pounds. Good for you. But what if I told you that sometimes this kind of weight loss isn't a victory? It's a warning? That's exactly what happened with my grandmother. She was the heart of our kitchen, the kind of woman who'd bake cookies just because, who never let you leave her house without a second helping of dinner. But one day her plate started coming back half full, then barely touched. We asked if she was feeling sick. She said, "I'm just not hungry anymore." We didn't think much of it until her clothes started to hang off her, until her cheeks looked hollow, until she'd lost almost 30 pounds without changing a single thing. That wasn't dieting. That was something deeper. What we were witnessing was something called cachexia, a medically recognized syndrome that's very different from regular weight loss. It's not about calories in and calories out. It's your body saying, we're running out of time. Let's stop spending energy on digestion and focus only on survival. Here's what really happens inside the body. As systems begin to wind down, your metabolism shifts at the cellular level. Your body literally stops prioritizing food. Even the digestive system, one of the most energy-hungry systems, starts shutting down. Because when resources are limited, the body gets selective. It says, let's conserve every bit of energy we have for the brain, the heart, and the lungs. That's why people experiencing this kind of weight loss don't just drop pounds. They lose interest in eating altogether. Nothing tastes right. Water might taste metallic. Sweet things turn bitter. Even their favorite meals don't spark joy anymore. And here's the heartbreaking part. Sometimes they'll suddenly start eating again, just for a day or two. Families get hopeful. They're hungry again. They must be getting better. But this momentary burst of appetite is often just a fluctuation, not a recovery. It's one of the many emotional roller coasters that caregivers go through. So how do you know if this is just stress or something more serious. Here's what to look for. The weight loss is unintentional, no change in diet or exercise. It happens across the entire body, not just the waistline, but the face, hands, even fingers. It's progressive. It doesn't stop or reverse without intervention. It comes with constant fatigue, weakness, and no interest in food, even the ones they used to love. This is not about fitting into an old pair of jeans. This is about a body quietly preparing to let go. This sign usually appears 2 to 4 months before death, and it's one of the most misunderstood by family members because we're conditioned to see weight loss as a good thing. But context is everything. When weight loss happens without intention, when it comes with loss of appetite, exhaustion, and a sense of withdrawal, it might be the body's way of saying, I'm slowing down. I don't need to process food anymore. I need to rest. I know this is heavy, but here's why it matters. Recognizing this sign gives you a window of clarity. It's a chance to talk, to plan, to say, I see what's happening, and I'm here with you every step of the way. Because the goal isn't to fear what's coming, it's to make the most of the time that remains, to fill it with warmth, peace, and presence. So if you or someone you love has experienced sudden, unexplained weight loss, especially when paired with a complete disinterest in food, don't ignore it. Don't chalk it up to age or stress or a new phase. Listen, watch. This might be sign number 2 that the body is beginning its final journey. And in the next part of this video, we'll explore one of the most emotional changes of all, the psychological shift that often looks like depression, but is really something far more sacred and deeply human. So stay with me, because understanding these signs isn't just about facing death. It's about honoring life until the very last breath. Sign number 3, emotional withdrawal and mental shift. Let me ask you something that might hit close to home. Have you ever watched someone you love start to pull away? Not just physically, but emotionally? They stop worrying about the little things. They no longer care about bills, arguments, work deadlines, or even the world outside. It feels like they're slowly stepping back from life. And if you're not prepared, it can be heartbreaking. But what if I told you that this isn't necessarily depression? It's not dementia. It's not giving up. In many cases, this is something much deeper. It's the mind's way of preparing to let go. You see, as the body nears the end of its journey, the mind often follows in its own sacred way. People begin to detach, not because they've stopped caring, but because they're beginning to make peace with what's ahead. It's a phenomenon doctors and hospice workers know well. And when you understand what's really happening, you stop feeling afraid and start feeling awe. Let me share a story. A few years ago, my friend's father was dying from cancer. He had always been a high-powered attorney, sharp, driven, always in control. But one day, something shifted. He stopped checking emails, stopped talking about work. He even stopped stressing about the family feud that had lasted for decades. Instead, he became quiet, peaceful, almost philosophical. He started talking about the stars, about childhood memories, about people who had already passed, as if they were sitting in the room with him. At first, the family panicked. Is he hallucinating? Is it the meds? But the hospice nurse gently explained, no, this is normal. This is part of the process. What my friend's family was witnessing is what experts call a mental and emotional shift near the end of life. The brain in its final weeks begins to change chemically. The areas responsible for fear, stress, and social pressure begin to quiet down. Instead, people often become more introspective, more spiritual, more connected to the past than the present. Sometimes they talk about people who aren't physically there. Other times they might stare off into space, smile to themselves, or speak in ways that feel almost otherworldly. And perhaps the most mysterious part of all is something known as terminal lucidity. This is when someone who's been confused for days, or even weeks, suddenly becomes crystal clear. They recognize everyone. They hold complete conversations. They feel like themselves again, like a spark has reignited. It's a moment of pure clarity that often lasts just hours or minutes, and then it fades. Many families, understandably, misinterpret this as a sign of recovery. They're getting better. Look, they're smiling again. But in reality, this is often the mind's final gift, a window of light before the final chapter closes. Here's what I want you to take away from all this. When a loved one starts withdrawing emotionally, when they no longer care about what used to stress them out, when they become reflective or quiet, it's not always a sign that something's wrong. In fact, it might be a sign that something sacred is happening. This mental transformation usually appears 1 to 2 months before death. And unlike physical decline, which can be gradual, these changes tend to happen suddenly and dramatically. That's what makes them so confusing. We live in a world that teaches us to fight till the end, to never give up, to stay strong. But sometimes strength looks like acceptance, like letting go with grace, like finding peace in the things that used to cause anxiety. So if you notice a loved one changing in this way, becoming quieter, more reflective, more detached, don't panic. Don't force them to snap out of it. Instead, sit with them. Listen. Be present in the silence. This is sign number 3, a shift not just in the body but in the soul, a step toward peace, a final preparation for what's next. And in our next segment, we'll explore a sign that shows up clearly on the outside, the physical transformations that many miss until it's far too late. But for now, remember, letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And sometimes the quietest moments are the ones that speak the loudest. Sign number 4, physical changes in circulation and breathing. There's a moment near the end when the body begins to tell a story without words. It speaks not through pain or fear, but through subtle, visible changes that most of us miss until it's too late. This is sign number 4, the physical transformation that happens when the body starts preparing for its final goodbye. And while this might sound scary, I promise you, there's something deeply intelligent, almost poetic, in how our bodies handle this phase. Let me explain. As life nears its end, the body knows it can't do everything anymore. So it begins to make choices, intuitive, primal choices, about what matters most. It says, I no longer have the energy to keep everything running. Let's focus on what keeps me alive just a little longer. And just like that, the circulatory system, your body's highway for oxygen and nutrients, starts to shift. It begins redirecting blood away from areas that are no longer essential. Your hands, your feet, even your fingertips, these start receiving less blood. Why? Because your body is protecting your core organs, your brain, your heart, and your lungs. This is when we start to see the first visual signs. Things that may seem strange if you don't know what to look for. You might notice a marbled pattern on the skin, often starting at the hands or feet. It's called mottling, and it looks like purplish or bluish patches under the surface. It's not painful, it's not an injury, it's the body shifting its energy inward. At the same time, the extremities begin to feel cold. Not just cool, but truly cold to the touch, even while the chest remains warm. That's because the warmth, the blood, is being reserved for vital organs. In fact, this is one of the clearest signs that the body is entering its final phase. You might also see changes in the nail beds. They become pale, bluish, or even translucent. The skin may take on a waxy texture. Again, these aren't signs of illness. They're signs of reprioritization. The body is saying, let's use our final resources wisely. And then there's the breathing. One of the most distinctive patterns is known as Cheney-Stokes breathing. It's a rhythm that's both haunting and fascinating. Deep breaths, then shallower, and then a pause. Sometimes no breath at all for several seconds. Then it begins again. This rhythm can be unsettling to witness, but it's not painful. It's a result of the brain's respiratory center slowly losing control as oxygen levels change. Think of it as the body trying to do its job, with limited tools left. Here's the important thing to remember. These physical signs, mottled skin, cold hands and feet, irregular breathing typically appear just days or weeks before death. They're not early signs, they're part of the final descent. And they're the body's way of conserving energy for the most essential systems, for survival, and for peace. I once sat beside a hospice patient. Let's call her Margaret. She had been quiet for hours. Then suddenly her breathing changed. It became deep, then shallow, then stopped completely for a few long seconds. Her daughter clutched my hand and whispered, "Is this it?" I shook my head gently. Not yet, but her body is close. Margaret's skin had started to show that familiar marbled tone. Her hands were cool, her fingernails had turned pale. But through all of this, she looked peaceful. No pain, no struggle, just the body, doing what it knows to do. And that's the deeper lesson here. We often fear this stage. We think of it as terrifying or chaotic. But the truth is, the body has its own wisdom, a built-in intelligence that quietly takes over when the end draws near. It doesn't panic, it doesn't fight, it simply prioritizes. It lets go of what's no longer essential and focuses all it has on making the journey as smooth as possible. So if you ever find yourself noticing these changes, don't see them as signs of failure. See them as signs of transition, of the body doing exactly what it was designed to do in its final act. This is sign number 4, and understanding it allows us to witness the end not with fear, but with compassion and reverence. In our next segment, we'll explore the final sign, a powerful and often misunderstood form of communication that happens in the last hours and days, a sign that tells us, even when words are gone, something sacred is still speaking. Stay with me, because these aren't just signs of death. They're signposts for how to love, care, and be present when it matters most. Sign number 5, the body's final communications. There's a silence that falls in the final hours of life, a quiet that speaks louder than words ever could. And in that stillness, if you know how to listen, you'll discover that the body is still communicating. This is sign number 5, the body's final messages, subtle, mysterious, often misunderstood, but profoundly important. Let's begin with something you might not expect. Even when someone seems unresponsive, hearing is often the last sense to go. That means, yes, even if they can't open their eyes, even if they're not speaking back, they can still hear you. I've seen families hesitate at the bedside, unsure what to say. But let me tell you, say it. Say the words, say I love you, say I forgive you, say thank you for being my mother, my father, my friend. Because chances are, they do hear you. And those words matter more than you'll ever know. Now, alongside this quiet sense of hearing, there are other signs the body gives. Small but powerful indicators that systems are shutting down. One of the most recognizable is something called the death rattle. It's a gurgling, wet sound in the back of the throat, caused not by suffering, but simply because the person no longer has the strength to clear saliva and fluids. To a family member, it can be frightening, but to the person experiencing it, it's not painful. Their body is no longer spending energy on swallowing or coughing. It's focused on more essential functions. Another sign? A subtle but unusual odor. This isn't poor hygiene, it's chemical. It's the result of the liver and kidneys slowing down or stopping completely. Waste products that would normally be filtered out begin to build up in the body, creating a unique scent that signals the end is near. And then there are the movements, gentle hand gestures, reaching at the air, plucking at blankets. They seem random, but they're not. These are often caused by shifts in oxygen levels and changes in brain chemistry. Some say it's the body navigating between two worlds. Others see it as the soul reaching beyond the physical. Whatever you believe, these movements are meaningful. They're not purposeless. They are part of the body's final symphony. Each gesture, each breath, like notes in a song that only plays once. What's incredible is that the body shuts down in a specific, predictable sequence. First, the digestive system goes quiet. There's no need to process food anymore. Then the kidneys slow down, stopping urine production. The heart and lungs, the powerhouses, keep going until the very end. And the brain, our command center, often remains active longer than we imagine. This is why so many people seem to hold on until someone arrives, until a holiday passes, until they hear a familiar voice whispering, "It's okay to let go." I've seen it happen again and again. A grandmother who waited until all her children were gathered in the room. A father who took his last breath just moments after his daughter said, "I'm here, Dad." Coincidence? Science? Spirit? We may never fully understand, but we don't need to. What we do need is presence. Because these final communications, these signs, aren't just for the dying. They're for us. They tell us when to gather close, when to let go of denial, when to shift from trying to cure to simply being there. And that's the gift of recognizing sign number 5. It helps us create peaceful endings. It helps us offer comfort instead of confusion. It gives us the chance to say goodbye, not just with words, but with love, touch, and time. So if you ever find yourself sitting beside someone who is nearing the end, don't be afraid of the silence. Don't be shaken by the strange sounds, the stillness, or the scent of change. Instead, listen with your heart, hold their hand, speak softly, and honor the moment for what it is, a sacred threshold between this life and what lies beyond. Because when we recognize these final signs, we stop fearing death, and we start embracing it with grace, presence, and deep compassion. So now you've seen it, all 5 signs that the body gives us before death. Let's quickly revisit them. 1. Profound changes in sleep. The body slows down, conserving energy, or becomes restless as time runs short. 2. Sudden weight loss and appetite changes. Not a diet, but the body's quiet decision to stop processing what it no longer needs. 3. Emotional withdrawal and mental shifts. A detachment from daily concerns, a turn inward, and sometimes moments of remarkable clarity. 4. Physical changes in circulation and breathing. From mottled skin to Cheney-Stokes breathing, the body prioritizes only the organs that matter most. 5. The body's final communications, subtle gestures, final breaths, and quiet signs that tell us, even when words fail, connection still exists. Now I know this topic isn't easy. Death isn't something most of us want to talk about, but maybe, just maybe, we should. Because this isn't about fear, it's about understanding. It's about seeing death not as a dark, sudden event, but as a natural, sacred process, one that speaks to us through the wisdom of the body. When we recognize these signs, we're not just watching life fade. We're being invited to step in with love, clarity, and purpose. You see, recognizing these signs allows us to have the conversations we've been putting off, say the things we'll never get another chance to say, connect with hospice or end-of-life care services that can bring comfort, dignity, and peace. Create a final chapter that is not rushed or filled with regret, but full of meaning. I want to leave you with this truth. Death is not a moment, it's a process. And like any meaningful process, it deserves our attention, our care, and yes, even our reverence. I know many of you are going through this right now. Maybe you've lost someone recently. Maybe you're standing beside a hospital bed right now. Or maybe you're just trying to understand what happened to someone you loved. Wherever you are, you're not alone. And this knowledge is not meant to weigh you down. It's meant to lift you up, to help you prepare, to help you live more fully in the moments that remain. Because at the end of it all, whether we have decades ahead or just days left, what matters most is how we show up for each other. So if this video resonated with you, if it gave you clarity, peace, or even just a new perspective, please consider subscribing to the channel. Comment below and share your story, because your voice might comfort someone else who's silently walking the same path. And don't forget to share this video with someone who might need it today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you in the next video, where we continue exploring how to live deeply, love fully, and walk through life with open eyes and an open heart. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other.